All right. Well, hello, my artist friends. And I have a question. Do you ever find that your work is inconsistent? You have a bunch of different drawings, sketches, maybe even paintings that are kind of consistent, but you can't really show them together. They don't really make sense. I'm here to tell you today why it will make your life so much easier if you begin working in series. So let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen. And I like to draw while I talk. So let's go ahead and get into it. So I'm going to be pulling up my painting here that I've been working on with Bandelli and his cast of, I want to call them almost misfit friends because they're kind of troublemakers. But I mean, what little boys aren't? But today is going to be really cool because I want to talk about something that I had to learn absolutely the hard way. I really had to learn this the hard way because, quite frankly, I just didn't realize how important this was because I just noticed that I have hundreds, even thousands of drawings that are kind of all over the place. They're different studies. A lot of them might be similar subject matters, but the color palette is inconsistent. And so I'm like, wow, you know what makes so much sense for artists to work in the same way? Almost like the way that musicians work. Like you'll see a musician, and especially in the older days, let me see if I can find the brush that I'm looking for. Um, I need to go to favorites. Here we go. So you might see an artist who was working, who, they will have lots of music, and if they're successful and lucky, they may have 10 albums, 20 albums in their lifetime. I don't know if any artist has 20, maybe like a a very super successful artist might have as many as 20 albums if they ever get to that number, but most will have up to 10 albums. But one thing that you'll notice is they don't have all 10 at the same time. They're not trying to do their work from later on for wherever they are at a later stage in their life that they're going to be doing right now. You're going to be making the work that is for right now. So you're going to be making essentially your album for your art. Because, when a musician does an album, there'll be like 10 to 20 tracks on that album, and they all come together to make up one piece. So they might be different paces. They might be vary a little bit in what they're talking about, but essentially they're the same thing because they're part of one message. And it makes so much sense to treat your artwork in the same way and really not try to do everything at once, but try to create a single message at a time. And the way you do that is by working in series. So, what does that look like? It could look like every time that you're thinking about practicing a particular type of subject matter. Let's say you want to get better at drawing hands. A lot of artists want to get better at drawing hands. If you haven't gotten used to it, or it might be certain types of paint or color, or even textures like hair. It's totally okay to pick a thing that you want to work on, but I think it's so much more helpful when you do it in a series. And what I mean by series is you're doing multiple pieces in the same language. So that means that you have multiple pieces, um, maybe like up to 10, between 8 and 10, or 8 to 12 pieces. And you're doing them in a similar fashion, you're doing them in a similar style, and you're doing them in a similar color as well. And I'll explain what I mean exactly by that. So, the reason why I think that this is really helpful because it gives you that power to have a focus. Okay, so that first tip where I think it's really going to be helpful for you is that it's going to give you a focus for a period of time. It doesn't have to be forever. It could be for a week, it could be for a month, it could be for a year. But depending on how much that subject is means to you and what you want to do with it, you can just explore one subject at a time. I recommend, especially if you're doing practices, you can do one for anywhere between 1 to 4 weeks. It's very similar to what happens like in October when they do the Inktober and everyone's doing one medium and everyone is having, doing kind of a spooky theme. But for this, you're basically gonna be picking your own thing. So whatever it is that interests you, a lot of people like to draw certain types of animals, whether that's cats or dogs or anything of your choice, but you want to be choosing one at a time to make at least 8 pieces. And that way they're going to be consistent. The second thing is that you have that set number when you're working. So instead of, just doing one or two randomly, you'll have that goal number in mind. So you'll say, okay, well, I'm going to make 8 or 10 of these. And that's what I'm going to be working on for the next couple of weeks or a week or 2 weeks. And that will give you a focus. And having that focus, might not seem much, but it will really help you to dig deeper into that subject matter. You might explore things that you might not have thought of before. It'll give you a way to look into that, into whatever your chosen subject matter is, and kind of explore it a little deeper than it would be if you were just doing 1 or 2 pieces that way. Right. So let's see. The third one I have is that having a single color palette really makes your artwork look good. It makes it visually cohesive. It makes them make sense together. I have done so many pieces where I was just kind of really, really feeling not sure what to do with color, really kind of uncomfortable with color. And so every piece I did was a different palette, or just didn't even have a palette, really. That's even worse. When you don't even have a palette, you're just kind of picking colors or just going off of the colors that you see in nature, which I think it's okay if you're doing that in a series. Like if you're doing a consistent series where you're exploring natural colors, I think that can work. But I think it's even more helpful when you get to a place where you're comfortable enough with color that you can pick your own colors. So even when you're doing a study of nature, you can have a palette already that you want to use. So when you do paint it, all of a sudden it's making more visual sense, right? When you see like classical paintings of nature, like like who would I say? Like Matisse is a good one, or Monet, and they're doing like these paintings of outside locations. It might be water, it might be you'll just see that the color is not the necessarily the natural color that it would be, but it's just really they're using complementary colors, they're using colors that please the eye. And so when you're comfortable with picking your own color palette, you can explore that palette with a whole series, and all of a sudden they look like they belong together instead of kind of looking like they're all over the place. And like you can even see what I did here. Like this is not the colors that you would necessarily see if you were to see this scene in real life, but I picked these colors intentionally so that they'll be more aligned with what I'm looking for in the long term, like the type of style that I want people to recognize me for. And I don't think that really happens until you start making a series where people can start to look at it and see a piece of art from a distance and know and say, oh, hey, that looks like so and so. And I don't think that's only for people who do, um, you know, quote unquote fine art painting. I think that's for every kind of artist. You want people to, there's artists where you hear the first note on the radio and you'll know like that sounds like so and so because they have a certain type of sound or a certain type of style. And I think you really come to that when you start working in series. All right, after having your color palette, the fourth thing I think is you can choose a particular medium to work on at a time. So this doesn't mean not to explore multiple mediums. I encourage artists all the time to try out different things and see what you like. But I think it's good for a collection to just work in one particular medium for that collection. I think the only um, way I wouldn't encourage that if you want to explore like the exact same image with multiple mediums, and that can really work if you want to kind of explore like a couple of different ways of approaching one particular piece. I know that like Georgia O'Keeffe, she's done, and a couple of other artists as well will do like repaint the exact same thing, whether it's the same door or the same flower, and they'll just try different mediums, but you can still recognize it as being from that same artist. So, but I think in general, you'll have one subject matter, but different versions. Like you might like this one, it might have this scene of these boys, they're kind of, hanging out where they live, But the other one might be they're exploring, they might be in the market, they might be out. I think I had Bendelli running through like a landfill, you know. So you can have the same characters, like if you're creating studies for a world or for an animation or for some type of storytelling, you can explore the characters um, in different locations, and you can still use the same color palette. And I think it's helpful to do a number of them so that they're cohesive, and then you can explore. Maybe you might do some that are day studies and some that are night studies, but you can still have a consistent palette. And if you're doing something what is it called when they have like a different all the different colors for the film, they'll be laid out like a storyboard. I forget the number, why my brain does this. Sometimes it will just forget the words for things. I think you know what I mean, though. God, it's like right at the tip of my tongue too. But anyway, um, but you can do like each of those pieces too can be like they're kind of going they're in sequence. If I'm not saying the word right, they're in sequence, so that you're having these things, and they're like you're having these pieces where these scenes are in this color palette, these other scenes are like it might be act one will be one color palette, act two will be another color palette, and act three will be a third. But you're having those three ones in the same color palette, so they make sense together. You're not going to have like five different color palettes in act one. It's going to be crazy. You want it to make sense so that it's not confusing. I think one of the one of the main ways that we make sense of art and storytelling is with cohesiveness and consistency. So when you begin working in series, you can start to see how things are going to make sense together, and they're going to make sense to your audience because your audience, a lot of the time, will not really know the process of art making. They might not know why they like something or why they don't. They might just say, this just doesn't feel right, or this just doesn't look good, because it might just be that the colors are not lining up or they're too all over the place. So you want to make it easy for people to visually digest what it is that you're making. Okay, I'm going to unlock this alpha for a second so I can get this highlight here. Okay, so in these 6 steps of why I think that you should work in series, the next one is after you choose a medium, is allowing yourself to explore techniques under one umbrella. And so, what I mean by that is if there's like a technique that you've been wanting to try, say that is digital painting, or say that is like uh, charcoal. I don't know how many people ever use charcoal anymore. I don't really see it. Or like pastels, which, you might be doing this digitally. So it might even be that you want to explore um, digital charcoals or digital pastel or digital watercolor. And I know there's different brush sets that you can get that can allow you to explore a particular type of medium in digital form. And that's something that you can do. But doing it in a series allows you kind of a more of a range to really kind of play with it. Like give yourself that number so you have that 10 that you're gonna complete, but I feel like it also takes some of that pressure off because you don't feel like you have to get it just right in the first one. You have more ways of exploring with it. You have more ways of kind of teaching yourself how to use it. And I think that can be really fun. That can be really fun. And if you have particular type of media that you really enjoy, or even one that you've been afraid of trying, which I think is even more common sometimes, because we sometimes will avoid mediums that we don't know how to use because we don't know how to use it. But if you give yourself the window of working in a series, uh, then it's just for a limited time that you're kind of playing with it. And it could be like practice sketches or practice paintings. But if you have a number, a set number that you kind of commit to yourself that I'm going to do at least 8 of these, then even if it's not perfect, it's still something that feels like complete. It still feels like there's something about them that makes sense together, which is always a good thing. I'm gonna put the alpha lock back on and lighten this just a little bit more. Okay, and then finally, the last thing that I wanted to say is that it allows you to become more aware of your thought process about whatever your subject matter is that you choose. So, like for instance, I'm choosing these neighborhood boys who are just kind of street savvy and all of these things, and I'm getting to explore their personalities, which I was already thinking of. I didn't have a cast of characters for Bandelli's sort of crew that he hangs out with. I kind of had an idea of, there's going to be a few of them, maybe 3 or 4, and they're going to vary with their height and their weight and everything and their complexion. But I didn't think too much beyond that. I didn't think too much about, all right, well, who are these kids going to be? And kind of exploring under this umbrella, like into Bandelli's world, it gave me the opportunity to say, all right, start thinking more deeply about that. And what kind of things might they like? And what kind of quirks can they have? Maybe this guy, maybe he found these cool sunglasses one day and he just became kind of a staple for it. So like just kind of exploring that kind of gave me a little bit of a window into who these characters can be. I think it's fun to explore just kind of sketching, and you don't necessarily have to like when I make a character, I like to kind of explore through sketching to see what they look like first. And then once I know what they look like, then I can say, I think they would behave this way. I think their personality would be like this. And having a particular set subject matter and being able to explore through like multiple pieces for that same collection, it allows me to do that, and it will allow you to do the same thing. I mean, there's so much that I learned like the hard way. But once I understood that, like, once I sketch somebody, I can pretty much give you their whole life story because that's the way my brain works. My brain will start to think that way, like, what is this person like? What is even like the foods they might eat, and kind of, exploring through that subject matter. Like, could be boys in a rural area in Kenya because that's where my story is. The fictional location is based on. And that's something that I can explore in a couple of pieces. And if you have a subject matter that you choose, you can explore and sketch and get ideas. And it allows you to think more deeply about that subject matter. Like, all right, so what might be the things that they do on a daily basis? What might be the things that they get caught up in? What might their family be like? Are these kids that are, good in school? Maybe one of them is. Maybe one of them is like, the one that does really well in school, and maybe one of them is like the one that has a hard time. So you can start thinking about all of those things when you have a consistent or set thing. It really helps you to nail down what your interests are, because obviously if you decide to work in a collection, you're not going to be like picking something that you don't like or that you're not interested in. Like it's very unlikely unless you just want to get better at drawing that, which that's okay too. But likely, the more likely thing is if you are committed to doing at least 8, but hopefully 10 pieces about one thing, you're going to pick something that you have more interest in. You're going to think more deeply about, okay, or maybe don't think too hard. Just let your mind say, okay, well, I like this type of thing. So I want to explore it more. I want to explore it. Um, I'm willing to commit to doing it, doing a certain number. So that way I have something to show. And that's kind of my last point. That's kind of my bonus point. Is that it gives you something to show. It gives you an opportunity to make your art marketable. And I know marketable is not a great term that artists really love to hear a lot. But because I believe that every artist is an entrepreneur and every artist should be an entrepreneur and think about themselves as an entrepreneur, um, I mean, you do want people to enjoy your work. You do want people to buy your work because, you know, rent is not free the last time I checked. So it's great to be able to have a way to showcase your work in a way that people can receive it, which is having something that's consistent, having it cohesive, having it make sense. And it makes it more digestible for people when they're looking at your work. Like, and you do get an art convention opportunity, or you do get whether it's at a Comic Con or whether it's just at a local fair or any other opportunity where you get to show your work. When they see something that's consistent and cohesive, it automatically makes it that much more attractive. It automatically draws people in. They might not even know why, but when they see things that kind of make sense together, they're like, I want one of those. Like you see those Funko Pop things. Have you ever passed by a window of like those Funko Pops, and they're all different things, but they all have like the same foundational design. And when you see them all lined up, it's like a magnet. People just automatically are drawn to it. And I think people are automatically drawn to like consistency and seeing things that like have that things that people, I think, what is the word that people always say that people are attracted to, like I don't know what the word is, but you know, like the golden mean. And when we think about that type of thing, when people see things that are consistent, it like draws your eyeballs in. I know that's not the best word, but it's true. It really does draw you in. And I remember like this story I'll tell you really quickly of when I first moved to New Mexico. Um, I really started to fall in love with Day of the Dead art because I had never really seen it before, and I just thought it was so cool and different. I'd already was kind of a rocker girl, and I already loved skulls, and I just the way that they were doing, like, dressing up the Katrinas, and they had like all these paintings of like these skull type characters basically, and I thought it was just really fun, and I wanted to be part of it. So there was a store in particular that sold like that style of art. And so I was like, okay, I know I can do something like this. So I made this painting. I made a painting and I brought it to the guy, and he's like, all right, this is nice. Where's the rest? And I was like, well, I just have one. And he's like, yeah, you're gonna need more than one. And he wasn't. saying he was going to buy my work, but he was giving me a lesson that I needed, is that you can't sell to a store as a single piece. I mean, unless you have a book, which a book is a collection of pieces anyway, right? I never seen a one-page book, really. Even a zine is folded into multiple pages. But uh, the point was, I really learned that day that, you know, one-off things, doing things once is never enough. Do them multiple times. Learn. Like if you're doing like animal studies, if you like to draw at the zoo like I do, um, do a collection. Do a collection in this that just means like if the theme is wildlife, do at least 10 in the same medium, in the same palette even. That way you'll have something that you can show. You'll have something that is, ready to share. And I think a lot of times, especially early artists, don't get that business side, don't really understand why things don't work in the market. And one of them is this that we can't show things that aren't consistent and that aren't cohesive and in a way that makes sense to an audience. And you know what? There's been times too, even when I saw like some some artists displaying their work and they were doing really well, but they were doing like the same subject matter, like they had the same color palette. And I was wondering, like, I would hate to have to draw the same thing forever. And you know what I really want to get clear is it doesn't have to be forever. Explore things in series. That doesn't mean it's going to be everything. It's just you're doing 8 to 10 that are that make sense together. And then do something else. If you find out that I don't really like this medium or I don't really like this color, then you can move on. Or I had fun with that for a while, but I think I want to try something else. And it's the same way with music. What that was the analogy I was using earlier. You know, an artist might say, like Beyonce, for example. I'm just thinking about her. Like I really liked doing this thing with Destiny's Child for a while, but I decided that's not my thing anymore. But they have a couple of collections and those things still sell and they're done in series and they make sense for what they were. And her style has changed a lot since when she started. I mean, as it should. I think most artists' style ends up changing over time, whether you're a musician or whether you're a digital artist or whether you're a video game designer. I think your style does change over time, but it's really cool if you have a collection for that makes sense for the time that you're in now, that makes sense for the artist you are now, and you allow your work to evolve with you so that you have sort of this like this chain of work that kind of is you over time. It's like none of them is you by themselves, but together they make sense and they're like together, I feel like they encapsulate your journey as an artist. They encapsulate um, your vision and how it's changed and how you evolve. And having that is really I think it's really a blessing because there's not too many times where you'll be able to really see like you telling your story through your work, even if it's just as simple as I'm really interested in this thing right now. I'm really interested in slice of life right now. I just want to draw I just for 10 days just want to paint like my coffee or my teacup and the croissant that I had and the fruit. And if you do like 10 of those, that's kind of cute. That's kind of cute. You can make a little mini book out of that. You can actually share that with people and say, this is something that, or even a time in your life, like when you're going through a different time. I think it's really cool when some artists will share, um, what it was like being a mom for the first time, or, or moving to a new place and they're just sharing what that experience was, but they're doing it. They have a number of pieces that they do about that particular thing, and they're doing them in the same type of style. And your style evolves or changes, but that's the style that made sense for that collection. And I think when you kind of look at your work in these sort of moments of time, it will help you so much to have a vision as an artist, to be able for people to be able to see your journey. And I think let me actually expand really quick so I can show you what I did today. I still have a ways to go, but this has been a very good little session for me. And I really hope that this was helpful for you too, because I think that um, these sort of things and techniques is not necessarily what we learn in art school. I definitely didn't learn this way in art school. We're just exploring lots of different things. And we talk about portfolio, but the thought process behind it, I don't think was ever really explained to me. And so I don't know if it was because it wasn't explained to me. I have to assume that it probably wasn't explained to a lot of other people as well. So I hope that this is really helpful. I'm going to go over what those 6 points were with my bonus point really quickly. So, first is give yourself a focus for your drawings. So each time that you want to think about having a series, give yourself a focus, and it gives you a focus. It gives you the freedom of having a focus for each thing that you're doing in your work. Instead of like trying everything at all at the same time, pick one thing for this week and see where you want it to go. And if you get a couple done, then maybe next week you might want to do something else. But it gives you a focus for what you're working on. Second is having a set number gives you a clear goal. So if you have, all right, I'm going to make 9 pieces in this, you have a clear goal for how many you want to finish so that you're not kind of all over the place and kind of guessing or scratching your head. Third, having a single color palette makes your work feel cohesive, and it makes it so much more like aesthetically pleasing for your audience. It makes people drawn to it, it pulls people in, and it really gives you opportunity to market your work. Fourth is choosing a single medium or medium combo removes the guesswork, so you don't have to be guessing what medium to use. Just pick one medium for this thing, whether it's marker, whether it's digital painting, watercolor. Just pick one thing, and for the next thing, or combination of things, a lot of people like watercolor and color pencil. Pick one particular thing that you're going to work on throughout their series so that they'll all be cohesive and you won't have to guess which one to do next. Fourth, I think I just said fourth, which is choosing the medium. And fifth, it allows you to experiment with a particular technique under an umbrella. So it gives you a safe place to explore techniques. So there's one thing that I wanted to try with um with water. So I'm thinking like there's got to be a collection that I want to do with water. So definitely it would give you an umbrella to explore a particular technique if there's something that you wanted to learn or try. And the sixth one is it allows you to become aware of your thought process with the chosen subject matter. So with this particular one, like I was saying before, it really allowed me to think more deeply about this subject matter. It allowed me to think about the characters and the types of places that I want to associate with it, and even to kind of like explore and learn more about it too. So I think that's really helpful. It gives you a focus to really like, okay, what is it about the subject matter that I want to learn, that I want to share with other people, and that I really want to bring into my work. And I think the final bonus one was really it gives you your work an upper hand to be able to share it and market it and really get it out to the world. You want your work to be shared with as many people as possible, and you want as many people as possible to enjoy it, bring it into their home and share it with other people. I think so much of what we do as artists is to be able to share our work. And when we do things that are cohesive and able to be shared in a way that they can be sold to the public, I think that's good because it gives artists the freedom and flexibility of becoming entrepreneurs. And I think if you can make it and if you can give yourself the chance to get your art out there, then really do it. If you can get your work and get it out to people and they can enjoy it and they can receive it because it makes sense to them. It's not all over the place. Everything is consistent from your medium to your color to your subject matter. Like somebody might want to buy all 10 pieces. You never know. So give your work a chance to be marketed. And it really makes your work able to be seen when you work in series. So I hope that helps. That's all I have for today. Thank you so much for being a part of my channel and a part of my podcast with Sankofa Animation Network and on Alicia Dianne Art on YouTube. And I will see you all next time. So until then, be grateful, live balanced, and be yourself. Bye bye.